As Dr. Ruben Abati rightly put it in his article published yesterday on the back page of this day newspaper, it would require a whole festschrift to capture the essence of Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, who turned 80 on Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. An academic, author, public policy expert, distinguished professor, and man of letters, Professor Akinyemi is an icon, one of those that continue to shine luminously on the Nigerian landscape and whose engagements with his country and the international community have stood him out. In 1975, he was a 33-year-old political science lecturer at the University of Ibadan when he was appointed as the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, Nigeria's policy think tank. He was subsequently appointed the Minister of Foreign Affairs, during which he shaped Nigeria's policy and influenced several African countries in their engagements with the rest of the world. Under him, foreign policy concepts such as the concert of medium powers, the black bomb, Nigerian exceptionalism, and the power school were espoused and robustly debated. Even in retirement, Professor Akinyemi has remained active in the public domain and on the speaker circuit, where his views are widely sought on major local and international developments. While joining us to discuss his engagements on the local and international arena for almost 5 decades and how his interventions as one of Nigeria's foremost foreign policy experts have helped to shape the country's foreign policy is Professor Bolaji Akinyemi. Thank you for joining us, Professor Akinyemi. Good morning and happy belated birthday, sir.
Prof.
Good morning, Todon. Good morning, Dr. Abati Rufai. Good morning.
Morning.
I tuned in yesterday.
Glad you did, sir.
Really, I was overwhelmed by the tributes you paid to me on this program yesterday. I thank you very much. My attention was drawn to what Dr. Abati wrote about me. I mean, he's a wordsmith himself in his own right, and I was very touched. And before we go any further, let me say this. I am having a special luncheon at your convenience. The Morning Arise crew, you are welcomed to this house. Dr. Abati, just tell me when it will be convenient for you to do Rufai Adesua, and really my door will be open for a luncheon. Wow. So we get that out of the way. Those are the consequences you were referring to yesterday.
Implications. Anyway, congratulations once again, Prof. I was going to ask you,
Thank you.
You know, when you woke up this morning, 80 plus, I mean, how did you feel? But in terms of conversation, when you look back, about 5 decades of engagement with the public space, you've done so many things, and I've seen tributes from everywhere. When you look back, what will you consider to be those moments that made you happy, those major experiences that you had, and then what are the regrets, if there are any?
Well, the happy moments are both in the private and in the public domain. Because the private one would be when I got married, had my first child, a girl, and when I got my doctorate degree. You know, it's funny, up until a minute before then, you are Mr. Akinyemi. And then the provost at Oxford turns to you a minute after and says, congratulations, Dr. Akinyemi. And from then on, nobody calls you Mr. Akinyemi anymore. But it struck me that very minute when that provost said, congratulations, Dr. Akinyemi, because I had just finished being examined on the thesis. And then, of course, the appointment to NIA, you know, there are always things you would never really tell the truth, the whole truth about the circumstances. But I know the call that early morning after the Murtala coup that came, and I was informed first that I was going to be the foreign minister, and then about a few hours later, another call came to say, well, they've decided that their foreign minister should be somebody in uniform. And then the conversation led to being offered to either go to the United Nations or go to NI. And I picked NI. That to me was a momentous decision, because I was a turbulent lecturer, and quickly I thought at NI I would be able to prove that I could walk the talk, that it's not just all mouth, not just all theory. And I must seize this opportunity to pay tribute to my colleagues at the university. You know, we all rallied around Murtala Mohammed. We were all inspired. We thought, finally, we've got it right. And each one of us was looking, for that cubicle where we could put in our own contribution. And my colleagues from the university simply poured into NI for all the lectures, seminars, and the things that, that we needed to do. Let me also make a correction here, although it is too late. I think it's embedded in people's brains that I was more than what I was as DGNI. See, NI was being used by the federal government as the venue for a lot of things. Council of State meetings, when the head of state wanted to address any particular group, and all this kind of things. And of course, I had to receive him. That's the head of state. Whenever he showed up at the institute, one of my predecessors had been sacked from the institute for not being there to receive General Gawan. The poor fellow did not even know that General Gawan had been invited to an event. He wasn't told, so he wasn't there to receive him. Anyway, so I was always there to receive the head of state or Colonel, my boss, Joe Garba as foreign minister, or General Obasanjo as chief of staff. And of course, the picture in the newspaper of me receiving these people gave the impression that I was one of the policy makers. And I was not. I was just there as a messenger, to receive them and accompany them. But this created this impression in the country that, you want to get in touch with Murtala, call Prof. And you will be able to do that. But being DGNI was one of the defining moments of my life. And then, of course, the ultimate, being appointed minister by General Babangida, whom actually also I spoke to yesterday when he called me to congratulate me. Being minister was the ultimate. The institute was laying down broad parameters of thinking by the Nigerian foreign policy elite, trying to expand the boundaries of the possibility of Nigerian exceptionalism in the world. But then being minister was to see whether we could actually actualize this exceptionalism. And it worked. I'm very grateful to God that he had always given me this excuse me, I don't know now what to call it, but I've never believed that I have eternity to achieve whatever opportunities God brought my way to achieve them. I don't know whether I will be sacked a week later. I mean, there could have been a coup a month later and I will be out. Therefore, every day that I spent on any assignment, I try to claw into that moment as much as possible. And of course, I was right. Even though I spent 8 years at NIA, I spent only 2 years plus as a minister. And therefore, I think that approach, that, okay, you are there, hit the ground running, you don't know when the baton will be passed on to somebody else. It worked. So those were exciting moments in my life.
Right, so that's one takeaway.
And then you said the disappointments.
Oh, do carry on, sir. I thought you were
Sorry?
Do carry on, sir. I thought you were done.
Okay. No, Dr. Abati then said the disappointment. Well, the disappointment, it's obvious. I wish I had stayed longer as a foreign minister. I think there was so much that we could still have achieved. But I understand why I needed to be removed. President Babangida was sitting on an institution that put him there that he had to reckon with, and whenever anybody's position or performance become controversial, that he started to threaten that the cohesion of that institution, where it is that person who had to be sacrificed. And I understood that. And I must say, which is very unusual, he gave me 6 months' notice that he was going to remove me as a minister. 6 months. And I didn't allow that to affect me for the 6 months. And on the eve of the 6 months, he called me in to say goodbye, to say farewell, and to say anytime I want to talk to him or anytime I want to meet him, he would be available. So, but that was a disappointment for me. Well, there you are. There it is.
Can you shed some more light, sir, on that lack of cohesion? What was that? What were the tensions that brought about your premature removal as minister? That's the first question. I wanted to also ask you, you just mentioned how you were living in the moment, so sort of carpe diem, and that's a takeaway for me, and I'm sure other people watching this interview. I also want to know your take on those charting the future of Nigeria on the international stage. What course should they take? What is your advice? Because as we're saying yesterday, we almost said that they broke the mold when they made people like you. What do you think of the future?
Okay, let me address your last question first. I made it a point of principle after I was removed from office not to visit the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I don't mean visit physically, but, crowd their space or crowd the space of whoever became the foreign minister after me, because I felt that I had had my innings, I had moved on. Don't crowd the people who then come after you. Give them an opportunity to make their own achievements, make their own mistakes, and they also will move on. I've never liked this idea of former office holders behaving as if they know it all, and as if without them that rain in Spain wouldn't fall. And that they are the alpha and omega of Nigerian creation, or Nigeria are moving on. So I will beg off that last question. It probably had been very helpful that one or two of the of the people who have then occupied the post after me have actually been people I had mentored. Professor Joy Ogu, our first female DG at NIA, and then our female foreign minister and our our female ambassador to the United Nations. I recruited her to NIA once she left the university, and I'm very proud of that. In fact, let me also say this, if I forgot to say it. I think 4 of the people who became DGs of NIA after me were people I recruited to the Institute. You get so much pleasure in mentoring people, rather than creating a situation where you behave as if you are the only one who could make the sun shine in an institution. I've been very, very proud of the DGs after me, and the fact that they came from within the institute itself. The present foreign minister actually was my student at the University of Ibadan, and I hope Onyema doesn't mind my saying that this will be the first time publicly that I will say that, and to that extent I have a vested interest in his success as a Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, this is always a sign of old age. I can't remember the first question, Tundun, you raised. Please, can you repeat that question?
No problem at all. The question was really more of a comment in the sense that you talked about really living in the moment, and I took from that carpe diem as a takeaway from what you said. But I was asking really about the lack of cohesion that precipitated you leaving the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You referred to it, but you didn't go into details.
Yeah, well, IBB once said publicly, so I'm not going to reveal whatever he didn't say, but he once said publicly, because somebody asked him that question, and he said, I understand what Professor Akinyemi was trying to do in the ministry, but not too many of his colleagues understood what was the motivation and understood the complexity of the policy. He understood the need for the concert of medium powers. He understood the fact that Nigeria was batting below its capability. And that we have to drive Nigeria into being this, not a regional power, and that the capability for Nigeria to actually, I'm sorry to put it this way, to be a world power like India. India is no longer a regional power. India is a world power, and that Nigeria had that capability intellectually, economically, and what have you. But that was the divisions within us that continue to derail Nigeria. So he bought into my attempt at creating a concert of medium powers that will drive the Nigerian presence in the world. But not all members of the top echelon of the military actually bought into that. If you read some of the books that have been written on ECOMOG, for example, you will find out that the military, the top echelon of the military, did not really, not all of them, cooperated with IBB in Liberia and in Sierra Leone. And it almost became a parallel where funds meant for those operations were being blocked in the defense ministry, and IBB, they had to set up almost a parallel funding mechanism to drive those operations. And yet today, ECOMOG, not even if it's not recognized in Nigeria, abroad, when you talk to scholars abroad, I mean, it was like that would be the first time you will have an African power not driven by a foreign European power achieving the restoration of regional order, and that in some of the military institutions in the United States, in Britain, they are studying the ECOMOG, ECOMOG as an institution for peacekeeping, not a UN operation, but one that is autochthonous to West Africa. And really, when you peel, like you are peeling an onion, when you peel the outer limits, you find Nigeria there. Those were things which I shared with them, but not all members of the military did. And if a section of the military then perceived the Minister of Foreign Affairs as, well, as being problematic in things that he tried to do, and they approached him and they told him that it was either them or it was me. The Americans and the British also were not happy and were not comfortable with me being a foreign minister driven by the love of his own country. Margaret Thatcher loved ministers driven by love for Britain, and Reagan loved people driven by love for America, but they didn't like ministers driven by love for their own country.
Okay, I have a lot to ask you, but we'll just have to shorten it real quickly. Because of time, I'd like to ask you this. If you can answer in about 2 minutes, I hear, what has been your staying power over these years? You've, transcended many generations. Bolaji Akinyemi in the 70s, the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and today. Are you always still relevant? What has been your staying power?
I'm a troublemaker. I don't feel at ease when I'm not causing trouble, intellectual trouble. I stay up nights thinking about what should have been and what still could be. I'm glad we have only 2 minutes, so I won't delve into the 2014 National Conference, for which Dr. Abati knows more than he's ever agreed that he knows about. But that, to me, even though when people introduce me, they don't make any mention of that 2014 National Conference. I really regard that 2014 National Conference as a major achievement, because that conference never broke up. People were afraid that there would be walkouts that were never walkouts. To me, that's a major achievement for Nigeria, and I'm so happy about my role as the deputy chairman and the opportunity given me by President Jonathan to play that role. But it's just that I always keep thinking, what might have been that is not, and what could still be. And I suppose until I draw my last breath, is going to continue to be that. The brain is working. Other parts may not be working, but the brain is there working.
All right, so can I say 80 hearty cheers to more troubles?
Good trouble. Like
Good trouble.
Congratulations, Prof. I mean, since you mentioned that there will be a luncheon, people have been inviting themselves on my phone, including a friend of mine called Sonny Roche, who says he's your in-law. Anyway, congratulations.
I mean that invitation. I am serious, Dr. Abati, and I will leave you to please let me know when it's convenient.
No problem, sir. Congratulations once again. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.